Hello and welcome. My name is Chris Newton. I'm a pediatric surgeon and a trauma medical director, and I'm here to bring to you today a tool called Anticipate, Plan, Cope. This program was designed and put together by a tremendous group of individuals from around the country and is focused here for this course on frontline healthcare providers. So there are multiple different versions of this. This, as I said, was put together specifically for you. You can find different tools in different places related to COVID-19 and mental health. Please note, this course was initially intended to be a classroom setting kind of environment. Of course, right now that's somewhat of a challenge. So we put together this video tutorial to try to supplement that and help with those that want to get this information. So there's, as I said, multiple agencies and groups and very talented subject matter experts that have come together to put the content in one place as hopefully a cogent single plan for dealing with some of the stresses and challenges that we've all faced during COVID-19 pandemic. You can see some of those groups listed here. Please note the point of contact, Dr. Schreiber, whose email is listed on the slide. So what is this to start with? This is an overall plan, and hopefully at the end of doing this, you will build what is referred to as a family resiliency map. This means that over the course of this tutorial, there's actually some work to do and some writing to do, and certain steps that we will guide you through until you have some kind of concept of the challenges that you may face and some kind of plan of how to deal with them. So step one of this is to recognize the challenges that are currently going on and try to anticipate concerns and challenges that you may face in the days and weeks and months to come. Step two is to talk about plans or possibilities or options for all of these challenges. And ultimately, after you make these plans, to try to link your skills and resources with your challenges and your needs, thus helping you to cope with all of these challenges and be more resilient, both at your job and at your home. All right, so let's begin with anticipating the challenges. So I'm going to acknowledge that there's a lot of different resources and programs that have been coming out over the past year, and even before that. They come from all sorts of places. There's some great things that are there. They come from experts. These can be really, really useful tools. They may come from your work. They may come from your child's school, or from public health agencies. When you put them all together, though, as these are coming in such rapid fashion, it can become quite overwhelming and quite confusing. Thus, some of the motivation for us putting this together to try to consolidate a lot of thoughts into one place that makes sense. All right, so when we begin to talk about anticipating challenges, for the next few slides, I'm going to challenge you to think about a lot of different issues and challenges or stresses, not only that you may be facing right now, but also what you may be dealing with in the weeks and months to come. So when you begin just generally for all of us dealing with COVID, you immediately begin to think of all sorts of different potential challenges. Primary on these is health challenges. What happens when yourself or a loved one becomes ill? However, beyond the basic health challenges, there's also social issues, isolation, school challenges, job challenges, financial challenges, maintaining your current standard of living and knowing where your next paycheck is coming from. For some people, this is all part of the consideration and part of the ripple waves of what we've had to deal with. And don't forget, adding on to that, in some communities, additional stresses that under normal circumstances you would be able to deal with, like fires or hurricanes or other natural disasters. When you add these stresses on top of our current scenario, it really can become quite an overwhelming thought. All right, the next aspect I'd like you to consider is very specific to the healthcare community. So, not only do you have to worry about the impacts of COVID-19, but we want to acknowledge you're also in a very special circumstance where your job has a confluence of stresses and challenges. Your job may ask you to put yourself at risk and potential exposure to COVID-19. Your commitment to your job, your conscience, and your moral and ethical drive makes you want to go there, even with the risk. However, the challenge is, even though all this is true, you also have loved ones and a family at home. And you also have concerns about their safety and what happens when your family potentially becomes ill. When you put all these three things together, it becomes a very special circumstance that is not necessarily true for everyone else in your community. We want to recognize this because this is particularly why we want to focus on trying to help the healthcare community. All right, the next area that I'd like to challenge you to think about is how all of this is viewed through the eyes of your children. So, of course, different ages of kids will see everything that's going on differently. Some ages may not necessarily understand all that's going on around them. However, it's still happening. They still have stresses and worries and views. And depending on their age, they all react to this maybe differently. So this may manifest as worries and fears that they don't understand, don't know how to deal with. May manifest as sadness, may manifest as sleeping difficulties, loneliness, developmental delays. There's a whole host of things that you may be seeing in your kids at home. As you're thinking about these specific challenges that I'm going to ask you to list, take a moment and think about how the challenges are viewed through the eyes of your kids. All right, the next challenge is to ask yourself how it gets viewed through the eyes of your teenager. Of course, as the teenagers, as our kids get older and enter into teen years, they do understand quite a bit more about what's going on around them. However, they don't have the benefit of life experience that we do, and sometimes don't have the capabilities and the resources of coping that we do. So all of this has become tremendously distressing on so many kids all across the country. And when you look at polls that have been going on, the numbers that are coming back are breathtaking. The number of kids who recognize that the mental health stress on their generation is overwhelming, and potentially will impact their groups for the rest of their lives. So as you look through your lists of challenges and you're trying to anticipate and write down all of the issues, also think about what these challenges look like through the eyes of your teenagers. All right, the final perspective I will challenge you with is thinking about parenting. And of course, this is true not just for healthcare workers, but for parents throughout all communities. And what I'm getting at is this: not only do you need to think about the healthcare concerns and keeping your family safe, but once again, the ripple effects. This becomes dealing with school, dealing with isolation, worries about your family and your kids missing out on normal major milestones, on normal activities. This is the vacations that you missed, the Thanksgiving time with extended family that isn't there, the amount of time that you may be spending in the hospital that's different than other families in your kids' groups. When you think about what this means in terms of development of your kids and life challenges, this creates a whole new spectrum of issues that are important to think about. Okay. So this is an overview of anticipating those challenges. Ultimately, we're going to write some of these down. The next step is creating a plan. This is actually making out a resiliency map. So for the map, just like a map in Google, you're going to have a start place and a finish place. And the path that you take may be different. Every family is going to be unique. Some families aren't going to want to go on the freeway. That's okay. The point here is to write down where your starting place is, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there. All right. So first, I'm going to ask you to download the booklet. This is the APC booklet. If you open this up, you will find places here to write down some of the activities that we're going to go through step by step. You may want to write down in pencil. Some of these things you write down may be dynamic. Some of these things are going to cause you to want to think about them, and you may change your answers. That's okay. As we go through these, you may also want to stop this recording and stop the PowerPoint and take some time and think about these carefully as you write your answers down. Okay. Step one, all of these challenges that we were just talking about, all of the issues, whether it's issues with balancing your responsibilities at work with your family, thinking about school for your kids, thinking about who's taking care of them, transportation back and forth for your kids, job security, supplies, whatever the issues may be, these are the things that we're talking about. They're different for everybody. So I want you to take some time and begin to define them and begin to write them down. And as you're doing so, I want you to think about what are the top challenges. This means you're going to have to do some ranking of these. And which ones are the most important and which ones can come second or third or later. And as you get through ranking them, I want you on the paper to begin with just your top challenge. Pick the one that is the most significant, or at least for this exercise, the one you need to deal with right now. Write that one challenge on this form where it says My Future Impact Challenge. Okay. I want to acknowledge as you're writing these down and you're thinking about these, that things change over time. What's primary and most important right now can change later. Your list may be long. And I want to acknowledge something called coping fatigue. No doubt this is happening to all of us. Dealing with this long list of problems can be pretty overwhelming. So I want to call it out now. Dealing with coping fatigue is something that you should expect. You should know it's coming. And plan ahead that as you get fatigued in dealing with these, that you're going to know that's coming and you're going to work through it. So this is part of one of the challenges of knowing that just going through this process is difficult. All right. As you begin to write these down, so I'm coming back to my list, you have one challenge that I asked you to say, this is the most important, or this is the one that we're going to work on right now. As you begin to think about this one challenge, and we put up one example. So for this example, we put creating a plan for supporting my child with school while I'm at work. As you begin to think about this one challenge, I want you to begin to brainstorm about the various different issues surrounding that challenge. This can be maybe your options and resources. This can be things that make you worried that, hey, there's reasons that you don't want your kid to be at school. This may be things you're concerned about. It may be limitations that you have. These are all the surrounding factors that have to be thought about when dealing with that issue. And that includes writing down some of the various options that you may not think are good plans at the moment. Okay, take some time and think through this, talk through it. Like I said, this is an exercise in brainstorming. And sometimes all of these various issues don't come immediately. Take your time. All right, this next step in setting out this plan is thinking about your own reactions to stress and how you deal with this. And sometimes how you deal with it successfully and what you've done in the past to be able to handle tough situations. Okay, so stress is expected. The challenges are expected. We've now written down challenges that we would anticipate or that are already going on. All right, now this is, how is that going to impact you? Are you going to be sad, angry, can't sleep, can't focus, tough time at work? Do you have trouble listening to your kids or communicating with them? Is it so frantic that normal activities that you used to enjoy just aren't happening anymore? Okay, I'm throwing out a bunch of suggestions. They are just suggestions. They are just examples. The exercise here is to think about truthfully yourself and your family, whatever needs to go in that list. So just as you've done with the challenges, and as you've done with taking your time to list the options and other factors associated with those challenges, now I want you to take a few minutes, write down the actual stress reactions. Okay, the next set of tools is going to be how to put all of this together. So we've now gone through making a list of challenges. You've taken the challenges and you've written out factors and issues and concerns and various resources. You've written out how you and your family reacts to them in terms of stress. These are your plans and related to your challenges. As we put this all together, this is how the roadmap begins to form up. Okay, so step one of going through this is to build on previous successes. This is figuring out how you've coped well with challenges and crises in the past and write these out. We'll also list a handful of other tools and new things that maybe you've never seen, maybe you've never thought about, that you can put on your list of resources and list of successes. I'm going to ask you to figure out how to tap into your social support network, whatever that may mean for you. And also to figure out go-to information resources. This may sound simple, but it's actually really, really important. You put all of this together and all of these lists, and you'll see at the end, this is how the map forms up. Okay. So first, note that coping and putting your plan together and actually activating your plan for your challenges is not a passive thing. It's an active thing. And it takes focus and it takes work, and you have to think about it. All right. So now you have to think about writing down how you cope with problems and how you've done that successfully in the past. This may be some of the resources that you've listed under your challenges already. Remember, we talked about our challenges. We listed factors. Some of those factors are your options and your plans. That may be the same thing that you list here in how you cope with things. Take a few minutes, think about how you deal with problems, how you've had successful strategies in the past, and what your plan is for your specific problem that you listed as number one in the earlier exercise. Okay, the next set of exercises is to think about your social support infrastructure. So this is about asking yourself, who are the people in your family or in your community who you rely on? And I'll extend that, and I'll also ask, who would you be willing to support if they asked for help? Because remember, it goes both ways. So think about those social supports that work both ways and write them down. Think about having specific regular times to touch base and to talk. Whether it's video or phone, it doesn't matter, or emails, but some way to connect with these individuals and this social infrastructure on a regular basis. Okay, now let's begin to list some of your resilience factors. You already have some coping tools. Consider times when you coped really well with a challenge. And what did you do? You need to list those now under my resilience factors. This can be things like tapped into social support, called your people that you counted on. This may be things related to faith. This may be physical things, doing activities, doing sports. This can be mental, taking rest, taking a break, taking relaxation. Whatever it works for you, these get listed here. Then we need to add things to this list that maybe you haven't even thought of before. So I put a few things here that are options as ideas. There's a lot of great stuff out there. You just have to be interested and willing to look it up and to use it. These few examples are apps that can be downloaded. They're free. These particular ones are part of the National Center for PTSD. There's a PTSD coach, a mindfulness coach, an insomnia coach, and a mood coach that is all listed here. You can find these easily, download the apps, and try. Maybe they work for you, and maybe it doesn't fit. But once again, you don't know how if they help unless you begin them. Okay, let's go back to what we started a second ago. I asked you to begin to write your coping plan. All right. This is how you're dealing with your primary challenge that you listed at the beginning. Then you have your resources and your social network and your resilience factors that include these new ideas. So you can go back to your active coping plan now and adjust it. Maybe there's different things that you weren't thinking about that you want to put in here. So these are other ideas that you may list, and note as time goes on, you may change this list frequently. You may add to it or take away. All right, finally, I want to touch on making a list of where you're getting your information. Okay, getting information that's accurate is really important, and it can change your mindset of how you deal with a lot of different problems and how you set your timetable for when you want to do things. Expect the information is dynamic. It's going to change and it's going to adjust as time goes on. Find a regular time to get your sources of information and limit it to how long you're going to watch. Make sure you don't get overwhelmed by it. Make sure it's a source that you trust. And double check. Appreciate the fact that the kids in your house may see the same information, or they may see information that's more appropriate for them. It's okay to hunt for family-related stuff that your kids may understand a little bit better than you do. The final plea that I will make with you in getting all of your information together is this. As a healthcare worker, I would encourage you, don't try to be your child's pediatrician or your loved one's primary care doctor. That's a role that you should let their doctors take and allow yourself to be the family member. If you need health information that is about your healthcare or your family's healthcare, rely on your colleagues and your peers that are actually treating your family and let them do what they need to do. This is your medical home. So if you have kids, they have a pediatrician and a pediatrician's office. When conversations begin to come out about vaccinations and staying home from school and how to deal with some of the stresses of life for your kids, trust that pediatrician in that pediatrician's office that you've been dealing with all along. All right. So I want to try to put all of this together. You'll remember we began with putting down your challenges and listing them. You may list one at a time. This whole process of figuring out your challenge, figuring out your plan, figuring out your coping strategies, do it for each problem. So you may have to take some time to do an exercise to match up what is your best strategy with what are your options to create the perfect plan. Now, your plan may not be the most ideal. It may not satisfy everything you want, but it may get you through a tough time. And having a predetermined pathway will help you and your family make it through some pretty tough times. So as you're going through this, do not forget, this is dynamic. It changes. So not only do you have to write down and recognize challenges you have right now, you also need to monitor as things change. If someone in your family gets sick, this is a new challenge. This changes what your coping plans are, and it may change what you need to do. Be flexible with this. Recognize this. This is part of anticipating what could come. So for each one of these, you begin with an issue. Listed here is death of a family member. You monitor for changes all along, and something like this happens. You go to your list and you look at where you've been successful in the past, your resources, your social network, your source of information, your options, and write down the plan of how you get through all of this with your family. And don't forget to try unconventional things that you haven't tried yet. So, if you've not already gathered, this is a little bit of work. It's not passive. This takes time. It's also dynamic. Things change along the way. You have to be reactive. You have to be willing to adjust your plans as time goes on. Delving into this, hopefully, helps you prepare before things happen so that you're not as surprised in life trying to deal with challenges when they come up. There's a lot of resources out there. I've talked about several of them. I want to give you some of those resources here. These are references. A lot of them are really good, including things from the World Health Organization, parenting tips and handouts, the psychological first aid system listed in Listen, Protect, Connect, and of course, contact numbers, because no talk like this would be complete without providing these. If you need help, there's lots of help out there. Reach out and get it. Thank you for engaging in this. Thank you for trying this. Thank you for doing what you do. If there's questions or concerns or other ways we can help, or you know what, if there's ways that we can improve this, let us know. We're all in this together. Thank you very much.